We're back.
None of us is perfect. First of all, what's perfect? What is perfect? What is allowable as a human being? Oh, please tell us, far left, since you seem to have a judgment on this. Since you seem to hold any of us who regard the unborn child with dignity and protection as sort of, like we're just beneath them, right? Like, what do you know? Move into the 21st century. Isn't that what they're telling us? You know, to go with their sense of eugenics, like the Nazi regime, right? Isn't that really where it is? Well, here's the thing. Every single human being is beautiful.
Yes, it is Monday. That's right, Monday. I said Monday, May 20th, 2019. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coot podcast. And yes, there's an old but goodie, Mike Turzai. No, that was not Alabama. That was not Georgia. That was not Missouri. Or any of the 8 states that have passed restrictive anti-abortion legislation recently. That was our good old Turzai, but he's been up to it again. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out the Coot podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week I talk to our Capitol muckraker-in-chief, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. This week's show, we're back at it after a little bit of a hiatus, weird hiatus, unexpected in some ways. Joe Biden's Revisionist history tour kicked off in Philadelphia this weekend. Can't we all just get along? Biden goes all in on middle-of-the-road climate policy. Really? How do you cut a deal with a climate crisis, Joe? And welcome to the gates of Gilead. Extreme abortion bans set the stage for Supreme Court challenge to Roe v. Wade. 8 states, as I said, have now passed anti-abortion bills this year. The worst, of course, being the ones this past week's the bans in Georgia, Alabama, and Missouri. Elizabeth Warren, not one to actually kind of like look the other way, announces one of the most aggressive plans to defend reproductive rights. It stays right in her lane of having actual plans to go along with her rhetoric. If you have not read Rebecca Traister's article in New York Magazine this past week, do yourself a favor and read it. Her piece, quote, "Our fury over abortion was dismissed for decades as hysteria," resonates on so many levels. Your anger is an asset, and when a political party or political quote-unquote friends tell you otherwise, there's a problem with the party or those friends. So what do you do after you say the president is the biggest threat to American democracy? Well, you fight hard for a robocall legislation, of course. Fuck Democrats. Really, Bill de Blasio? Really? Good luck to you and your pals from Montana and Colorado. I know Beto O'Rourke will certainly be your friend. Where's the ball? Where's the ball? Where's the ball? Squirrel! 23 Democrats now in the race for 2020. And AOC gives her staff 3 months of paid parental leave. Man, I would love to be a fly on the walls of Congress these days. See what's happening in those congressional offices where those staff members have been treated like shit for decades. And today's PA Focus, while we were away, noted Islamophobe Stephanie Borowicz caught taking selfies with white nationalists for the American Guard. That's right. She plays that tune really well. The PA House passed another unconstitutional abortion ban, this time outlawing abortion of fetuses that may have Down syndrome. Turzai. 15 Democrats reached across the aisle to support this bill. 15 Democrats. Say it with me, everybody. Why do we think people should be primaried? Here you go. Even though this bill cleared the House, it passed with the lowest vote total an abortion ban has had in decades. That's the good news. That's the movement. That is the organizing. And for legislators who voted against the bill, well, they've got an email from Pennsylvania's Pennsylvanians for Human Life that compared their votes to Hitler and the Holocaust. Abscuff and the PA state system have a little love fest after they approved an early retirement plan outside of the contract. They say this is what working together looks like, Joe Biden. The public chumminess, however, leaves out the fact that the plan allows for an expansion of the part-time faculty cap. Backdoor adjunctification, folks. And the Martin Tower, the former international headquarters of Bethlehem Steel, is no more. The building was imploded on May 19th. And I'll be working the polls in tomorrow's PA primary election. That's right. Right here down in the Penridge School District, down in Percy. I'm going to be out there campaigning for One Penridge. That is a slate of folks for the school board election down there. Team of Kelly Peliquin, Peter Yarnell, Kyle Esposito, Lisa Wilson, and Alex Rajan are the folks to pull the lever for on Tuesday if you're down this area. And that's tomorrow. In today's last call, a new study warns that unless we start setting rules now, future plans to bind the solar system could destroy our little corner of the Milky Way. The study calls for designating 85% of our solar system as protected wilderness. On board. And Dogfish Head Brewery, craft no more, merging with Sam Adams. Is this the beginning of the end? That's the big question. And we'll get to a little recap of what we all did over the break, too, as well, since it's been a extended break. And today, remind everybody, tune in to the Rick Smith Show on Free Speech TV this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org. You can also tune on the Dish Network, DirecTV, or tune into the Free Speech TV app on Roku. And don't forget to listen to Rick's daily podcast on iTunes, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcasts. Look for the Rick Smith Show. I want to give a special thanks to our newest member, Nancy. Nancy became a member at the $10 a month level. Thank you, Nancy. And thank you for that great note along with your membership. Nancy basically said, hey, we missed your podcast on Friday. My husband and I were waiting for a podcast. It wasn't coming. And then we realized, you know what? We're not members. How can we not be members? And she joined up, and she sent me that really nice note along with it. And so this is a double thank you to Nancy. Nancy, thank you for the note. Thank you for becoming a member at $10 a month level. Thank you for being a listener and supporter. And I want to encourage you to do like Nancy, right? Because she knows, just like you know, if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. And you can help support Pull No Punch's homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. Not ready to become a member? No problem. Just go to ragingchickenpress.org, click that big blue donate button, donate whatever you can. But the best thing that you can do is become a member for as little as $5 a month by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. And that's going to support our intern for the summer, Stephen, our new writer from Lehigh Valley, Addison, and of course, Dorcas, who've actually seen her work. She's got another piece that's in the pipeline right now. That's what you can help do. Support up-and-coming writers. Support progressive media. Patreon.com/rcpress today. Well, Sean, man, welcome back. Welcome back.
Yes. I have a feeling today's podcast might be a little saltier. Saltier than normal.
Might be a little sassy. We're going to go in salty and sassy in today's podcast.
But it's good to be back in the saddle, I guess.
It is.
What else am I doing with my life at the moment?
Yeah, well, yes, I mean, God, come on, cleaning dust bunnies is tough work, coming up with excuses about stories for people about the work that you actually do. That's all good. Saying that,
walking around with my camera, a new lens,
walking around your camera, taking pictures of birds, making new friends with birds,
exploring.
Yeah, exploring. But hey, it has been some. Well, I mean, not entirely, but we've had a couple breaks in the first nice weather of the year. So.
Yeah.
That's something.
I mean, it was really bad last weekend, 45-degree weather and rainy.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I
was doing my laundry. I was like, man, why do I have sweatpants in my fucking laundry this week? And I was like, oh, that's right, because of last week I was actually wearing sweatpants.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, I was getting up to walk my dog in the morning, and it was like that kind of cold that goes through you, especially because it's damp and all that stuff. And I was just like, I'm like screwed. I put on my winter jacket to like walk him in the morning. I'm like, this is just nuts.
Yeah.
But hey, what a week! What a week!
I think we should get started with Joe Biden's revisionist history tour kicking off in Philly on Saturday.
Yeah, I've seen that Joe Biden's revisionist history tour. I've seen that someplace.
Yeah, so that's my new Twitter handle until he is out of the race in 2020.
There you go.
I think I have this all set. Like once he drops out, I think I'm just going to buy a bottle of Lefroy and just have a toast to him.
There you go. Right here, Joe.
Yeah.
Right here.
I've cut back on the on some of my extracurricular activities over the past month and other things. So it's yeah. I'm a little more pissed off than usual.
Well, I give you it's good to have a goal, and it's good to have that goal being a reason to celebrate. So I think Lefroy, when Joe Biden drops out, will be a good thing.
Yes.
So
yes.
But yeah, so let's get into a little bit. Biden was in Philadelphia this past weekend, and as I said to you right before the show today, I started listening to his speech. My stomach started to knot up, and I said, "I'm not doing this to myself. I'm not doing this to myself this weekend.
You're not ruining your weekend over a 20-minute speech.
I am going to freaking garden this weekend. I'm going to dig in the dirt. I'm going to play with my kids. I'm going to be out in the sun, and Joe Biden is not going to ruin it for me." So I started, but I did not get through it, and everything I read about that, I had to put aside. I mean, I'm back at it now, but I was not going to do it because it was so infuriating.
I would recommend having a couple beers at first, and then listening to it. It's just to loosen up the gears. I wasn't paying attention to a lot of it, but I was paying attention to some of it, and it's just fuck these calls for unity with the Republican Party.
It blows my mind, Sean.
Yeah, I am actually speechless about this. We have found someone who is more out of touch with reality than Hillary Clinton, and our first reaction was, yes, let's have him run for president.
Yep. As I said, to you before, it's you take the worst impulses of Obama, and then now you're going to campaign on it.
Going after Medicare, going after Medicaid. These are the fights. We wasted valuable energy. We wasted resources, mental resources, on stopping Obama's grand bargain, fighting the grand bargain and fighting cuts to the Social Security, fighting chain CPI, all these horrible fucking things that were the only bipartisan consensus of the last 6 years of Obama's administration was going after social insurance programs, and that's where he wants to go again. That's where Biden wants to go. And Biden was an important part of that. He stumped for these cuts to get Republicans on board, and they still didn't get on board.
That's right. That's right. He wanted to use his chumminess with the Republicans in the Senate as the criteria to get stuff passed. And as we know, it was
Republican light.
Yeah, well, it was.
It does not work.
It does not work. And I will even say that it may, at one time, may have proved advantageous in order to get certain things passed, right? But that time is a good 20 years past. That time is gone, right? And I think that what we saw beginning in 2010. Right. Think about it. We're almost 10 years into that now, folks. We're a decade after post Tea Party revolution, right? A decade into it. So there's students who come to my classes, will come to my classes in the fall, will have no memory of the Tea Party being a thing that happened that changed things, right? That was the shot heard around the world, right? And for us, that's what that led to launching this show. to Raging Chicken Press. Not this show. The show came a little bit later, but the Raging Chicken Press, 2011. This is what led to that. And Joe Biden should know, right? Because he was in office during those times, that the Republicans cut, gut, and punished, to use Rick Smith's term. That was it. We're going to do
that. I mean, like, the worst instincts of the base. I mean, like, they codified the worst instincts of, like, morale. Like, over these past 10 years. Like, you think that, like, Joe Biden, like, you think Mitch McConnell gives a fuck what Joe Biden's saying right now? Like, I mean, this is the guy who stopped a, like, Supreme Court nominee from going to the bench for, like, a year and a half. Like, do you really think Mitch McConnell gives a fuck at the moment? Like, come on. Like,
but the thing is, it's like, you don't need to guess. You don't need to guess, because McConnell has basically said it publicly himself, right? That this is all he cares about, the court, right? And then everything else. These Democrats that Biden, when Biden says things like, you know, if I get in there and I'm a reasonable Democrat, like Obama wasn't reasonable. The fucking, like, Obama was reasonable to a fault. Like, reasonable to the point where, like, McConnell, like, must have left meetings with him, like, this guy actually thinks I'm going to cut a deal with him. Like, can you freaking believe it? He's actually thinking that we had a real conversation in there.
I mean, it's like Lucy pulling the football away day after day after day.
Exactly.
For, like, 10 years. And obviously we haven't learned a fucking thing.
Well, let's say, let's qualify that we've learned it. Progressive has learned this. The mainstream of the Democratic Party has not. I actually think like most Democrats have realized this too. I agree with that.
I think like most rank and file Democrats who are not progressive have figured this out. Like, I mean, like, you saw this after 2016. A bunch of people got involved with the indivisible movements. TSA exploded. Like, I feel like people have figured this out. Like, I feel like there is a small section of the Democratic Party that has not figured this out. And like, this is like their deathgasm right now. Like, they're like, this is what this is. This is the deathgasm of this like stupid fucking wing of the party that like lost us the 2016 election and are trying really hard to lose 2020.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. So here's where this is the line that people need to draw, right? And it's a straight line. It's there's only 2 points on it, A and B. Okay. Those are your 2 points. Point number 1 is let's all get along. Let's work with the Republicans.
Unity.
What's that? Unity, right? That's point number 1. Point number 2 is the most oppressive anti-abortion legislation that has ever been like that we've seen as a result of the court. Right? And why I say it's a result of the court? Because Trump was elected. We have a party that all they cared about is running everything over. Republican Party. And now that Trump got in the office and all that McConnell cares about is getting the ultra-conservatives on the court, now these states are kind of like, let's the floodgates go. Because we're going to do this. So, number 1, unity.
Like
number 2, Gilead. All right? There's your freaking map, people. So when Joe Biden says unity, you think Gilead. Okay? Let's just make it real simple. And do you want to go through those gates? Right? Sure, there's going to be some kind of like, I don't know, pipeline-loving white folks who will happily go through those gates. But you know what? For the rest of us, no. Unity, Gilead. That's it. So fuck this shit. I mean, come on. And this is why Sean, I had such an awesome week last week, and I was like, I did my best to kind of to give myself a mental break from this stuff, because every time I see a poll, right, with Biden expands his lead, I want to freaking wreck stuff. Because I have to believe that people are not this willfully stupid. I have to believe that.
Yeah, no,
right. And I have to believe that these polls mean freaking nothing at this point.
And it's just name recognition.
Yes.
And I mean, like, you know, like we're going to be talking about abortion rights. I mean, there are quotes from Joe Biden back in 1974 thinking that, like, women should not have full autonomy over their body, and that Roe v. Wade went too far in providing that autonomy, and that men should have a say in this too. Like, this is like the same fucking arguments that the Republicans are making today. And Joe Biden was making these arguments in the Senate in the 1970s, right? Like, I mean, like he might have changed a bit, you know, during that time. Okay, granted, this was like 40, 50 years ago, but why are we considering someone who has a record this fucking dirty, like going back 50 years? I mean, like, his record is as wide as the Susquehanna. Like, it's like, and the Susquehanna is like 1.5 miles wide at some points. Like, that's right. How, and it's as shallow as
it's a shallow. I was about to say that, right? Exactly.
It's as shallow as the Susquehanna, which is only like maybe like 4 or 5 feet in some points.
Exactly. It's not even usable for the most part. Is basically the point.
Yeah, you can't have any recreation on there. You can't do anything. It's a shallow river.
No, you can have recreation. You go out and play and splash in the water. You just can't use it for like meaningful transport of goods or something like that.
Yeah,
you can go out and look at the water. It might be polluted, but you know what's it? What is it? What does that smell? Oh, it's frack water waste in the Susquehanna. Thank you, Joe. You know, like.
Yeah, so I mean, like.
It's just eating me up. It's eating me up. But I'll have to say is that if Joe Biden gets the nomination, I'm gonna get involved with my local Democratic Party more than I have, right? Because I've actually not been involved with our local party, a local chapter, and I'm gonna start pushing for. I want something new in the platform. Is that for the next, I'd say 20 years. No white men are allowed to run for office for president in the Democratic Party. None. Period. Because that's it. Because that's got to be a rule. Because that's got to be a rule.
But you don't think like De Blasio or Beto,
yeah,
or anyone else?
Look, and I know. Look, everyone who's supporting Bernie is going to have a problem with that. But like, I'm looking at the crisis that is going on right now, right, and. Like Bernie has got that is like my policy background. But I have to say, if you look at this is what's infuriating to me right now. If you look at what Elizabeth Warren is putting out, right, and they are not the same. I get that. I get Bernie as a Democratic socialist, right? You know, it's what's people keep on saying. Do you want Brandeis or how's that? How do the people put that? I'll come back to it. But, you know, it's like democratic socialism or kind of like liberal capitalism, right? Or kind of like regulatory capitalism. Like
Democrats and
right?
stuff like that.
Yeah, these are like I get the differences here, right? And I get kind of what that all means. But if you look at like Elizabeth Warren,
are far better than what Joe Biden's like pushing for.
Look, Elizabeth Warren's stuff is like if you read any of her stuff, you look at her pronouncements, her plans are the most solid plans that are out there by far. And the fact that, you know, again, I think Bernie is out front, but out front for a reason. Right? He built an organization, right? And he's kind of advocating for things that are kind of like fundamental to our future, right? And Elizabeth Warren's got these plans there. So in my mind, those are the two that should be at the top of the heap right now, right? The fact that Joe Biden is above either of them, and the fact that there's other of these freaking piss ants that are kind of running for office that are above Elizabeth Warren right now is disgusting to me. Because it shows you. I mean, again, this election right now, the Democratic Party, right? This is going to be a confirmation for huge swaths of people, women, people of color, progressives, about who matters to the Democratic Party. And it's going to confirm things like racism and sexism and the entrenchment of these things. I don't know. I know my thoughts are a little scattered here because I'm a little freaking enraged, right? By the whole Biden stuff.
The time off from vacation and being done with school and having no kids in the house.
Yeah, you know, it did. Yeah. But yeah.
But I mean, like, And also, I mean, like, another thing I think we should also talk about Biden, and, like, his policy platform is based on, like, really bad instincts. Like, liberal jingoism, liberal nationalism is not a winning, like we're not this shining city on a hill. Like, he is denying the fact that, like, you know, like, these people came together 250 years ago and said, we the people. No. Like, we the landowning white men came together and built this country, right? Like, he is talking about America being this unified country when really we've never been unified. This country was built on, like, it's almost like his, like, founding of America is built on the myth on the founding of Rome, of Rome becoming a city-state and then expanding into an empire. Like, it's almost like that parable of, like, Rome was founded on, like, these principles and, like, these three brothers and blah, blah, blah. When it was built on, like, war, colonialization, and slavery, which is basically what the United States is built on. And we've never been a unified country. We've had slavery for 400 years. We've had sharecropping for the 100 years after slavery was abolished. And we still don't have adequate civil rights in this country. And now we're adding, like, women to that second-class citizenry. Yes, I guess we really want to have, like, a nice Roman or Athenian democracy where it's just, like, I mean, like, we are regressing right now, and, like, fucking Biden's, like, is going to say, how slow do we regress?
Right. And I think, look, this, for the first time since the 2016 election, for the first time, we've been able to, and by we, I mean progressives writ large, women, people of color, lefties, right? This kind of have been able to talk about, for the first time in a public way, that this myth, this American myth, is this ideal, right, that is so far separated from the reality.
I mean, he's literally using, like, Ronald Reagan's shining city on a hill.
But that's exactly it. Look, because so far
iconography, like, and that's not, like, what we need. That's, like, 30 years ago, 40 years ago at this point. Like,
but look, this was the whole idea, right? When you start getting abstracted and start dealing with just kind of like ideals, right? Is that you don't get to talk about the reality. And when you do start to talk about the reality, you get disciplined for being anti-American. That was what I grew up in during the Cold War. That's what that was about. When you started being critical of things that you saw, like homeless people, right? Like poverty, like racism, right? You were saying, well, you don't like it, leave it. Like, go to the Soviet Union. You see, you like it, the blah, 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 right? It was that mentality, right? That way you have this ideal, and if you are not bought into the religious ideal that is America, then you are a heretic and you need to be punished, right? And that is disciplined a lot of people for a long period of time, right? Now, those of us on the left, right, have always been kind of active in protests, but you've been kind of always a marginal voice. Not always, but more often than not a marginal voice. What happened after 2016 is that you woke up like a huge swath of the population to the reality. And then we started talking about the reality.
So did you see Brett's tweets about this yesterday?
No.
All right, so here, keep on going, and let me pull these up real quick.
And so the idea was this, right? So the idea is that we start to talk about the lack of medical care. We need to talk about universal programs. We start to talk about climate change, for Christ's sake, like in a real way. Not just like, oh, there's a problem, we need to, like, you know, get industry to kind of, like, you know, take this little carrot and come. No, about historic proportions of investments to get us within a livable future. Right? I mean, that's unbelievable. We started talking about sexual harassment, right, and sexual assault in a public way, like a national public way over a sustained period of time through the Me Too movement, through Time's Up, right, through the Women's March, right? We started talking about, like, racism, institutional racism, in terms of, on the most violent end of things, like the assassination of black men and women in our society by police officers, right? And things like, it blows my mind. We're talking about like, we're going to pay back
reparations.
Right? Yeah, we're gonna have reparations. We're gonna pay back all that we've taken from the legacy of histories of slavery. Oh my God, the fact that reparations is on the table right now. That is huge. I mean, historically huge. And what I see in Joe Biden is an attempt to close those conversations once again and discipline us back into the shadows.
So this
and
is what
I'm not going.
So this is what this is where our friend Brett Banatelli, who's living out in California now, said online yesterday or over the week during the Biden rally. Or the Biden speech. He said, here's the truth. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Rep. Jayapal, and a handful of other reps are at war with reality. Joe Biden is living in peace with reality, pleasure even. Millions of people think that by voting for him, they can join him. They can't. And he goes, this is like 4 tweets, so here we go. Reality is at war with every single person that will read this tweet, and reality is winning. A few of us are fighting back, and it's going to take millions of more people to turn the tide. Even then, we'll have the entire forces of capital against us. That's when they'll escalate. Biden isn't promising to change reality. He's promising to return to days that never existed. We need to make that clear. He isn't saying he'll return to Obama years. He's saying he can bring us upon bipartisanship with white supremacists and people that proudly snatch babies. Like, either way, they're going to join our side of the fight, and we're all going to win. Or they won't, and we'll lose. That's the bottom line. We have to convince millions of voters, often through one-on-one conversations, that reality will continue to be at war with them under Joe Biden. That's it.
Mic drop. Brett Banatelli. No, there you go.
I mean, and it's the thing. He wants unity with the worst of the fucking Republican Party. No, you want unity? Cleave them off like the fucking cancerous tumor that they are. Leave them on the side of the road and start rebuilding our own future. That's like unity.
Yeah, unity is this. Unity is having someone call you on being sexually inappropriate, and then show up at a labor rally a few days later and make jokes about it, dismissing it. That's the unity that Biden represents. We just, yeah.
We're going and speaking in front of labor leaders wearing $800 suits, and pandering to them because he supports the pipeline, or he supports these building trades and stuff like that. Which I think that building trades people should be getting paid what they're making, because unskilled labor, like you unfair. If you don't pay right, you don't get good labor, and that's just the thing about it. But it's like these are jobs that could be turned into green energy jobs.
No, look, I think
I mean, he went up on there saying we need to protect the oil companies. They need to be part of the conversation. Natural gas industry has to be part of the conversation. No, they don't. They spent decades suppressing the truth. They spent decades getting to the point where we're at. They don't deserve a seat at the table.
That's right. And look, if you were a rank and file member in the building trades, right, is like, why on earth are you going to allow your union to be dragged down here? Like, I look at it like this: is like, rank and file members of the building trade should be demanding of their leadership, right, to go whole hog into demanding a green infrastructure bill. Instead of like saying we're gonna tie ourselves to the sinking ship. Instead of that, saying no, we want to be the keystone in that Green New Deal, building that future. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that those jobs that are tied to the carbon intensive industry, the fossil fuel industry, those jobs are going to start to dwindle, and then the new jobs that have to come online, right, are going to start using non-union labor, right? And it's going to be pitted as you, white union guy, is the past, right? So why on earth the leadership of the building trades is not 100% in on Green New Deal blows my mind. It is such a short-sighted view of power, of defense of working people, right, and of bargaining. It is the worst case scenario. it is myopic, and it will damage all of us, including the union movement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, whatever.
Any other depressing news you want to move on to?
Please, yeah, let's go talk about it.
Well, like, you know, Roe v. Wade looks like it's going to be on its final legs.
It's on the chopping block.
You know, we have to either like rely on John Roberts wanting to preserve the dignity of the court.
Yeah, we know how good appealing to the way things have been done, right? About the norms, how well that's
Roberts,
worked for us.
Upheld the ACA, and maybe like this, but that's what we have. And you know what? Like I absolutely cannot believe that. Like, it's depressing thinking that like this is like happening in my lifetime.
Yes, exactly.
Like, it's, yeah.
You go up reading about. I mean, this is why I was again talking about this with and
it's depressing that there's Democrats who are on board with this too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, it's like this. This is why there's this article by Rebecca Traister. I'm going to keep on saying her name to anybody who will listen, from the New York Magazine this past week. Our fury over abortion was dismissed for decades as hysteria. I want to kind of just read this one part of her piece, if I can. I thought I left it up here. Yes. So she goes through all this stuff happening and talks about how furious she is at the Republicans, of course, but also about some people on the Democratic side, right, and the progressives, so-called progressives, who have dismissed abortion rights activists, right, for decades. It's kind of like, you're blowing things out of proportion. You're so hysterical about this when it's never going to happen, and now it's happening, right? And so after this, she says at this one point, she goes, so here we are. The thing is happening, and no one can pretend otherwise. It is not a game or a drill, and those for whom the consequences, long real for millions whose warnings and perils have gone unheeded, are now only coming into focus, want to know what can be done. First, and this is so key, never again let anyone tell you that the fury or determination to fight on this account is invalid, inappropriate, or inconvenient to a broader message. Consider that this is also what women and marginalized peoples are told all the time about their anger in general, that they should not express it, not let it out, because to give voice to their rage will distract from their aims, undermine them, that it will ultimately be bad for them. This messaging is strategic. It is designed to get angry people to keep their mouths shut. Because if they are successfully stifled, they will remain at the margins, isolated, alone in their fury. It is only if they start letting it out and acting on it and working in tandem with others who share their outrage that they might begin to form networks, coalitions, the building blocks of movements. It is when the anger is let loose that the organizing happens in earnest.
And Biden said he wants to stop that anger.
Exactly.
That's the anger he wants to tamp down. Because that anger is apparently equivalent to the anger on the other side.
Exactly. As if we don't have very real things to be
pissed off about.
Enraged about. I mean, this is like we have been disciplined as a people. Like this, Rick Smith always used to talk. So like we're in some kind of weird freaking Stockholm syndrome, right? That we think that, okay, if we just wait for somebody else to do this, we're going to start identifying with our oppressors, right? And then hoping that our oppressors will somehow give us some crumbs, or they'll come up to a good idea, or we'll wait for them to do that because we're always going to be asking permission. We're asking permission from oppressors. That's got to stop. Ask for forgiveness. Once we've got Medicare for all, once we've got 100% protection of reproductive rights of women and of women's rights, once we got kind of equal pay for equal work, once we've got a Green New Deal, once we've got free college tuition.
It won't stop rich Republicans whose children or mistresses get knocked up and get them an abortion.
Exactly.
will not stop that. Like, Roe did not, like, make abortion legal. It made sure women don't die from abortions.
It's just insane, man. It's just insane. It's insane. But I look at this is going to. I mean, I refuse to stop thinking in worst case scenarios at this point, right? And because I think, like, okay, I'm happy to be wrong. But there's, like, I did hear there was some discussion about what's actually happening with these bills, like, especially when the Alabama law, right? The Alabama law, then followed right after by Missouri. But the Alabama law was basically saying, we're gonna stop abortion altogether, right? These are clearly designed, and that they're designed because they said it publicly, that these are designed to be test cases for the Supreme Court. They're said, okay, we're going to put all our eggs in. We're going to put this out here. We're going to demand it, and we're going to force something to go to the Supreme Court. And they want the challenge to Roe. And the real question at this point, the only question is are we going to see a watershed moment in which kind of boom, Roe gets shot down, or are we going to continue and ramp up the speed of the slow trickle of the destruction of Roe? Of here, that's really the difference, because we've already been in the period, and Rebecca Traister makes this clear too as well. We've been in that period of, like, attacks on reproductive rights, attacks on women's rights, attacks on Roe v. Wade, right? But thus far, the conservative movement has been very happy with just doing it piece by piece, trickle by trickle, piece of legislation by piece of legislation over a slow period of time, ultimately towards the same goal. To get rid of it, to make it illegal once again, to make women second-class citizens, well, they've already done that to a certain degree. But that's the goal. So the question is that will we go fast or will we go slow? And that's really what these test cases are about. Because there's other test cases that are already making their way through. Because you remember there was a law that got shot down in Texas by the court. Then Trump appointed new justices. And then almost the identical law that was passed in Texas, right? This is kind of, they used all these kind of like ways of kind of making it impossible for abortion clinics to exist, just called trap laws, right? So it was said, no, you can't do that. But new court, new majority, ultra-right majority, almost identical law that was passed in Texas gets passed in Louisiana. That is now on its way to the Supreme Court, right? So these are all about degrees at this point. So it's not about will John Roberts save the day. If you're going to freaking wait for a man on a white horse at this point, a white man on a white horse at this point, you're freaking crazy. You need to freaking get a reality check because that guy's not going to save you.
And those Republicans who voted for those men on the Supreme Court will not come to grips. Will not, like, they're not going to be bipartisan. It's just, I mean, like, it's amazing. Yeah, it's just it blows my fucking mind that we're having this conversation, and maybe we need to have this conversation. Maybe this conversation needs to be had and fought out in the streets.
It has to. I mean, look, I don't know.
And these people have to just be told to their face that they're fucking clueless. Like, and that's it. Like, maybe that's it. Like, we have to pull back the veil of respectability on these people and just confront them full force with milkshakes. If you are supporting Biden, like, that's it. Like, it's like
unity. I mean, Gilead.
And yeah, it's just a straight line from one path to the other.
I mean, and like, you know what's interesting about that simple map? You know what? It's a little bit different. I'll tell you what's a little bit different about it. It's not just Gilead, right? Because Gilead, in that map, unity, Gilead is also existing in a pretty kind of like dystopian climate crisis future. Right? It's also got kind of like, like horrible things that are happening to the planet is also happening there. So not only you're going to have kind of women who are going to be kind of like have their rights removed to like, well, I don't know. Not only are you going to have that, but you're also going to have a planet that is not going to be sustainable. Right? That's what freaking unity gets you.
Yeah.
So again, this is not going to be the last time Sean and I talk about this up until 2020. But you can count on the fact that this is going to be an ongoing theme. As long as people have got their heads up their asses and think that this is a way that we're going to defeat Trump. And this is last thing I'm going to say about that. This has been the problem with the Trump bad man logic from the get-go, is because the Trump bad man logic was only about the idea way up here, not about policy, not about where we need to go.
Or strategy, or communications.
Exactly. And that's what AOC, it's what Bernie, what AOC, what Rashida Tlaib, right? What we see, I mean, right across the board, these people, the kind of the young, primarily women, many of them people of color who have come into Congress and have staked out a new agenda, they're the ones who showed us the way. We need to follow them. Right? And forget this just Trump bad man thing. Because you know why? And I'll put this now. I don't want to talk a whole lot about this, but this is why. Because the people that advocated Trump bad man, threat to democracy, right? The greatest threat to American democracy in history, they can't even freaking pull the trigger on impeachment.
Yeah.
You've just said the evil incarnate himself is now occupying the White House. And we are all going to go die because of that. And you can't freaking pull the trigger on impeachment? You got to be kidding me. Because what most people do, and like we've talked about this on the show, right? Like initially, there's real risk to do, like political risk for impeachment, right? But not if you go in fighting. Because what people see right now is like, you just told me, like, you just said a sentence that said Trump bad man, right? And your next sentence was like, yeah, we're just going to have to wait to see all the facts are in.
I'm just going to be like your dog and roll over with my legs up in the air.
Right? You're saying we're facing a constitutional crisis, right? Chuck Schumer, constitutional crisis. And so what do you do about it? You get on board proposing legislation to stop robocalls. That is what people see. A Democratic Party that is weak, that is not willing to fight for what it believes, right? That is all wishy-washy when it comes right down to it. They're all talk, no action, right? That's what that leadership thing. That's why so many people are going to go in the AOC route right now, because they say, look, she said the thing, and now she does the thing, right? Not like what the leadership has done, not like the Joe Bidens of the world. So let's call it what it is. And this is, if it's a constitutional crisis, behave like it is. If there's a climate crisis, let's behave like it's a crisis.
No, we got to find the middle ground on the climate crisis for the Republicans.
Fuck.
All right, I just want to.
I know. We knew this was going to happen. So let me just. We're going to bring this, because this is, like I said, this is an ongoing conversation, and this will not be the end of it. But I want to say a couple things here real quick. Elizabeth Warren just announced a plan to defend reproductive rights. It is the most aggressive plan that's out there. She is going 100% in, not as kind of like some wishy-washy, well, we need to kind of consider. No. She's, boom, we're going to
both sides out the argument.
No, Elizabeth Warren all in. She is setting the bar right now for the defense of reproductive rights. Right? So that's number one. This is what it looks like to fight. Look at Elizabeth Warren's announcement this week. There's a link in the show notes. Number two, 23 Democrats are now in the race. There's a whole bunch of people there whose name begin with B that don't matter.
Biden.
Right. Well, I mean, like Bill de Blasio and Bennett, but I'm a Bernie fan. I like Bernie, so Bernie gets a pass on the B list, right? But I mean, really, I don't know what's going on. So this has the potential to be a shit show. And I'm at this point, it's like I've said before. There's a lot of these folks that have just learned a lesson from the Republicans. They're looking to cash in on this campaign and write books, and that's what they see this as their opportunity.
Have a fun time.
Well, they looked at Bernie's.
This debate.
Yeah, they looked at Bernie's tax returns and the amount of money he got from his book, and they want some of that.
I actually do this even better. I can make $10 million off my book.
Yeah. And they're going to be like, you're going to have a book that's filled with like, I don't know, mayonnaise. You think people are going to buy it. So whatever. But so we're going to see what's going on. The debates are coming up in June. The first round of debates are coming up in June. That's going to be interesting to pay attention to as we move forward. And the coolest thing ever, well, not ever, but very, very cool thing. AOC announced this past week that she gives her staff 3 months of paid parental leave. That is on top of basically saying that she is going to start everybody, what was it, 52,000?
Yeah.
So everyone's getting a living wage, right? Right. Everyone's basically close to the median income in this country, what her staff is getting. And now they're getting 3 months of paid parental leave. And
you know, it's
go ahead,
amazing that, I'm not going to say this on air. Oh, wait.
Well, all I could say now is that, like, I look at that and I'm like, I wish I was a fly on the wall of Congress right now, because these, like, for years, if you, like, I lived in D.C. for a while, but this is known well beyond that. Staffers are way underpaid. Very often that they're, especially kind of like newer staffers, right? Younger staffers, newer staffers. They're underpaid. They're treated like shit. They work kind of like unbelievable long hours.
And then you get these people making six figures who do not a fucking thing.
Right, exactly. And that's how DC runs, right? And the whole idea is that you work your ass off all the time, and then eventually that you've paid your dues to kind of work up the ladder, right? AOC comes in brand new and is like, no, my staff is actually not going to work like that. I'm actually going to treat my staff the way that I'm arguing that we should treat everybody. And she does. And you know what's going on. There are some staffers who've been with these candidates for a long time, and they're
just absolutely resentful of what's happening.
Oh my God. They got to be so mad.
Or there's actual caucus members within the Democratic caucus who are just like so fucking pissed off at her and can't say a word because it would just rip. It would just rip off a really bad Band-Aid. And
well, can you imagine if you're I'm looking at, we saw
that tweet out there. Oh, just had a conversation with one of my coworkers who doesn't like the fact that I give my employees, my staffers, 3 months paid maternal leave or parental leave.
I would love to see. You know how you had all the kind of the alt NASA, the alt government stuff that took place on Twitter. I would love there to be a hashtag with all these kind of alt ones that are kind of like staffer stories, right? You want to organize that. I mean, look, Bernie Sanders' campaign, they unionized, right? And Sanders was all aboard, right? Yep, go ahead, let's unionize.
And nothing I say about that. Becca Rass is working for Sanders' campaign. When I interviewed over the summer for the Just King campaign, unfortunately I did not get it, but. In my job interview, first thing that was laid out was the CBA.
Yep.
And the benefits that come with it, and guaranteed days off. You you're not working 7 days a week. You're at least guaranteed 1 or 2 days off a week. You're guaranteed these office hours.
Yep.
If you need to be in an event, you'll be notified a week in advance.
Yep.
It's stuff like that.
I mean, this is the way it should be, and I know that there's people here there's people there that have gotten so used to the way things are that they must be threatened to the gills now, because they know that they're looking in the mirror right now and they know what they've done to their staffers, and they can't say a boo about it. What are they going to do? Come out and say, I don't think AOC is wrong. Staffers should not get 3 months paid parental leave. They should not get a living wage. They should not have a union. Can you freaking imagine? But exactly that's the discomfort that's going on there. So I would love to see that. So anyways, So I just had to mention that. So when we come back, we're going to get into PA Focus, because holy cow, did a lot happen while we were gone. But, what are you going to do? We'll get into it. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. I want to remind you, the best thing that you can do to support what we do, to support progressive media, is to become a member by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. We'll be right back with our PA Focus.
I'm Rick Smith. and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1926. That was the day President Calvin Coolidge signed the Railway Labor Act. For decades, railroad labor disputes had often become bloody affairs. The railroad companies hired gunmen who killed dozens of strikers in 1877. The strike was so violent it became known as the Great Upheaval. In Scranton, Pennsylvania, for example, hired guns shot into an unarmed crowd of strikers. 3 innocent people were killed. In 1894, the Pullman strike had paralyzed interstate commerce and ended with violent repression by federal troops. Starting in 1888, the federal government passed a series of acts aimed at stopping these bloody battles. Then, during World War I, railroad operations came under government control. Labor disputes were sent to a national board of adjustment during the war. This all laid the groundwork for the Railway Labor Act. The goal was to find a better way to resolve railroad labor management disputes. Representatives from the railroad companies and the unions participated in drafting the act. It called for a system of mediation for railroad labor contracts, and only after the mediation had been exhausted could the parties attempt other means, such as strikes or lockouts. Most significantly, it recognized the right for railroad workers to unionize. Under the Act, employers can hire replacement workers during a strike, but they must take back the striking workers when the strike is over. For an industry that has had a notorious history for firing those who even hinted at a strike, this was an important change. In 1936, the Act was extended to include airline workers. The Act is considered an important step toward the creation of the National Labor Relations Act. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at laborhistoryin2.
On my challenge, by the ancient laws of combat, we are met at this chosen ground to settle for good and all. Who holds sway over the 5 points? Us natives, born rightwise to this fine land, or the foreign hordes defiling it?
Yes. Of course, that was Stephanie Borowicz talking at a Daryl Metcalf rally this past week, where she got
did a call that day.
Yeah, we know, we've heard she's recovered from the cold, but there it is.
Her voice is a little cracky and a little rough. Smoked a couple cigarettes beforehand.
Yeah. But it's a well proven path. So Stephanie Borowicz, front and center, Sean.
Yes. So this happened a couple weeks ago, but since we have not been on the air, I still want to talk about it. The selfie scene around the world. If anyone does not remember, if you all remember last year's gun rally back in 2018, I snapped a couple photos of these guys from the American Guard, pretty much out them as neo-Nazis. And they showed up to Daryl Metcalf's rally again, and they noticed me there in the crowd taking pictures of people. And so, they were not happy that I was there. Before she takes a selfie, I'm going around snapping pictures, and the one guy comes up with his cell phone and takes a picture of me, full portrait shot of me, and just trying to dox me or intimidate me to see what's happening.
Exactly. I'm gonna take a picture of you, Sean.
So I'm walking around. So at this point, I had my long lens on, and I had to take it off. And I put my I have a nice 24 millimeter prime lens for my camera, which is it's not super fast, but it's 2.8. It's a cheap lens, but it allows the Capital sucks shooting in there, so you need faster lenses with wider apertures. So I put my lens on, and I was just kind of sitting like a lion in the grass. In
the jungle, the mighty jungle, Sean Kitchen's there.
As this is happening, I go down to the committee hearing on the down baby bill, the abortion bill, that Borowicz was at. She left. I left like because it was just like whatever. It was a dog and pony show. There's more action going up with Metcalf's rally, so I'm up there at Metcalf's rally, and I'm just sitting. And here Borowicz came back up, and she ended up speaking, and she made a beeline right to these two guys from the American Guard, violent skinhead group, neo-Nazis associated with like the Vinlanders and like other like Nordic inspired white nationalist neo-Nazi groups, and like she took a fucking selfie with them. Like she like made a beeline right to them. Like it wasn't like it was like a cat going towards a catnip toy. Just like
exactly. Ooh, my people.
And so I had my camera ready. And like as she's like walking over, I'm getting my camera ready, and the one guy puts his fucking sign in front of my camera and tries blocking it. Well, then at that point, game on.
Right. Exactly.
So I got the picture as she's like smiling. Yeah, like
it's like, you did what now? Okay.
And as soon as I got that, I left the Capitol. I went outside. And like there's a bunch of like 3%ers, Proud Boys, militia people up there. I mean, like these rallies have become a huge haven for white nationalists, especially within the past couple of years. Like especially since Trump became president.
Yep.
Like I mean, like I've been to a couple of these rallies before Trump. You had more like your Tea Party patriot people. Now it's just full blown 3%ers, Proud Boys, militia people with their AR-15s, and just white nationalists everywhere. And I mean, like, this is what the Republican Party has become.
Yep.
And to go back to last segment, this is who Joe Biden wants to fucking have unity with.
It's not. Look, there were some good people in that crowd. There were some good people. Not all of them.
Some Democratic legislators in that crowd too.
There were some bad things happen on both sides.
Yeah.
Was the Biden? Oh wait, that was that other guy. It's the same freaking principle.
But I mean, like, the picture was fucking amazing. I loved it. I'm still like kind of just like basking in the glory of that, like spiking the football. I mean, because it shows you like it's such a good representation of what what the party is, and also like composition wise, I think like nailed it composition wise. You had like the three pillars in the background all leading down. You had the way of the wall, like right at the corner of the wall is like all framed up. Yeah, it couldn't not get better.
Look, I would say, like I've said this to you 1,000 times now, but like when I first saw that picture, what gave me just like glee was like how huge she was smiling. Like she was just like so happy, like teeth, like, she said she tried to release a statement later through his staff and things like that. Well, I take pictures with all my constituents and stuff like this. But so okay, yeah, constituent comes up, you come up, you put your arm around, you stand next to him, you give him a little smile, whatever. She was not like that. She was like leaning in full, like so happy to see these guys. So it's that was what was glorious too, is because it wasn't just like the shot. You're right. I mean, it was framed perfectly, but then it was like the content of her like joy of being with these Nazis.
And then you can see the one guy in the background, like who's getting covered up, just staring straight at me, like, "You motherfucker."
Yep. Yep.
And then as soon as I got out there, I ran into Matt Rourke.
Yeah.
From the AP, who's like the AP photographer who was outside, and Roxbury, and is like, "Yo, guys, you won't be the picture I just got." And I showed them, like, I'm out of here. I got to process this thing and get up online. Man, and that thing was just like a boomerang all over social media. It just like, I still have people from the Democrat caucus still coming up to me, staffers and legislators, thanking me for the photo. Like, people who have not said a single fucking word to me in the 4.5 years up here were just like shaking my hand over this picture. People who probably like hate me otherwise.
We're like, okay, look, I'm not a fan of yours at all, but props.
Pretty much.
Oh,
and then I think what made it better was later in the week I was doing a photo shoot with SEIU out in Governor Wolf visiting Hershey Medical Center, and I ended up getting a picture of Dr. Rachel Levine taking a selfie with a nurse, and I was like, acceptable selfies. This is how you take a selfie. This is how you don't take a selfie.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
I'm going to bring that when I teach my writing for social media class, right? I'm actually going to use that picture, and I'm going to use it kind of say as one of the, because we read that, Mike Schlossberg's book, right? What, Tweets and Consequences or whatever it is, or something like that. Was looking at all the fails, all the social media fails and things like this, and so we look at different kind of examples. This is a perfect example of this, right? Like on both sides of it, right? On not to be a both siderism guy, but on both sides. On the one hand, on the failure on her part, right, as the politician to even kind of think about that, but then the total get on your end, right, about being able to frame that and being able to kind of put, because it says so much in that picture, right? I mean, that's what was just freaking amazing about it. But
yeah, and it was composition. Like all the lines just like forced you to look right at Borowicz and this smile on her face, and it was just like, yeah, I had people like it. Yeah, I mean, I actually told a couple of people, no, they cannot use that image unless they pay me, because it was just like there are a couple of news outlets asking for it. I'm just like, no, I'm not. I gave it to a couple of places for free because I know they don't have the budget. But there are people who definitely had a budget asking for it, and I said, absolutely not, unless you pay up for it.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it definitely circulated far and wide. That is for sure. That is for sure.
Yes, it is. It was a good photo, I might say.
Yep. So all super congrats on that one, man. That was. Yeah.
But I think also serious conversation. It shows you what the Republican Party has become.
Yeah, that's right.
And it shows you what the anti-gun control movement has become. It's just a haven for white nationalists. Joe Biden's people.
Yep. Crazy. So yeah, that's a glorious one. Glorious one. So what else is going on in the Capitol this week?
Not a damn thing.
Not a damn thing.
Everyone is away for the
elections.
That's
right. Well, I should say, I don't mean this week, but I mean actually, well, big thing that's happening today, I have to say, is my son is actually in Harrisburg.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I wanted to be a chaperone for this, but I didn't get picked, so I was bummed. So they're doing a tour of the Capitol. So if you happen to be up at the Capitol this afternoon and you kind of see a kid that looks like my kid, it's my kid. But anyway, so a good friend Mike Turzai has been active since our last show too, as well.
Yes. So the Pennsylvania House passed an abortion ban going after Down babies, going after the Down syndrome protecting fetuses who have Down syndrome. They want to make it illegal for women who get testing, and if the genetic testing shows that something's wrong with the fetus, or they have Down syndrome, that they cannot vote for this. And there's also a rider that will make abortions, some other type of abortions, illegal too, and will jail the doctors. And 15 Democrats voted for this, which is the amazing part. The good news is that this is one of the lowest, this abortion bill passed with one of the lowest vote totals abortion bills have gotten within decades up in the Capitol. Normally they pass with 130, 140 people. I think this was more along it passed 117 to 76. So yeah, so I know a hell of a lot less people who voted for it. A hell of a lot more people voted last year. And it also shows you the progress within the party. It shows you the progress that you don't have people like Dom Costa, like Paul Costa, who got primaried, who voted for this shit all the time. And they always voted for it because they said, but my district, I might get voted out of office. A Republican might win. No. You have Sarah Innamorato and Summer Lee, who replaced them. You also have Elizabeth Fiedler, who replaced an auntie down in South Philly. I mean, it's time to start replacing these people.
Well, and once that vote took place too, as well, right? That happened. I mean, Summer Lee was once again out in front on this, right?
Yes. 1 second. I got to pull up the tweet. So Summer Lee put a tweet out after this vote later on that evening. She said, "Why spend your money, time, and effort mastering fields of study in the sciences or medicine when you could just be a politician with no discernible expertise and a seat handed down to you from your uncle, brother, daddy, and make medical decisions for us all?"
Boom!
And she was talking about the nepotism within the Democratic Party. More in particular, she was probably subtweeting Brandon Markosik, who voted for this bill. Markosik is in his probably late 20s, the early 30s. He was a Wolf staffer. He worked in Hannah's office for a while under the whip, another conservative Democrat, and he got this seat handed to him from his dad. Now, what happened here with this seat was Joe Markosik, the father, announced his retirement after handing in his petitions, and afterwards, there was no challenger on the ballot for the primary. So he resigns. Brandon Markosik's picked, and he's literally given the seat.
And votes for the abortion ban.
And votes for the abortion ban.
There you go. Here we go.
Yeah, and 5 Democrats in, Clinton districts in Allegheny County voted for this bill as well. So enough with this bullshit. Like, we need to actually start having people. Imagine having Democrats actually start running. You know what? No, I'm actually going to expand your reproductive rights. Yep. Instead of worrying about the religious right trying to take you out over an abortion vote. Yeah, because that's all this is, getting cowered into these votes. Right. And it shows you they have no spine and no messaging to counter it.
Well, and we should even say, right, so House Minority Leader Frank Dermody, right, when he started hearing calls, he was asked about the fact that, well, what do you think about there being primary challenges to one of these 15 Democrats now? And this is what he says, quote, "I think they're wrong and they're out of line," he said. Right? Remember, shut your mouth, don't be angry. Right? Dermody, right here in Pennsylvania, folks. So, and then, Sean has said on multiple occasions that, until there is some fundamental change in the leadership of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, this is what you can expect. All right?
Yeah.
Unity, Gilead. So, crazy. Oh, boy. What else we got, Sean?
Nothing too much. That was pretty much the big couple stories from this past week.
Oh, did you talk about the nice little email?
I forgot about that.
Forgot the email.
Again, more unity coming from the people that we should be sitting down and having tea with. This is a group called Pennsylvanians for Human Life. They sent an email out to everyone who voted against the bill with horrible pictures from the Holocaust and comparing their vote to the Holocaust and to Hitler and stuff like that. Again, this furthers the rhetoric that Mike Turzai had earlier this year when he was calling abortion advocates, Nazi eugenicists and stuff like that. Again, this is an issue that, you have someone like Brian Sims who did what he did a couple weeks ago and was not a smart move with berating and badgering people. Yes, I agree with him. I think that, people who protest Planned Parenthood clinics and abortion clinics are just as low as people who cross picket lines, in my opinion. They're scum. That's what they are. But, this is where we have two different tales here. The Republicans, had this kumbaya moment on the House floor, and then a few days later, they, pretty much putting this stuff to rest, started putting out campaign ads or online ads going after using Sims as a wedge issue in southwestern districts of Democratic districts. And, you have incidences over the past few weeks where Turzai called abortion advocates Nazis, or where Stephanie Borowicz takes a selfie with these things, and Democratic leadership didn't want to drop the hammer on these people.
There you go.
And again, you have another group like Pennsylvania for Human Life that, continued espousing this rhetoric that Turzai was using earlier this year. And nothing coming from leadership on this. And that has members pissed off. I know it personally. That has membership inside the Democratic caucus angry that leadership is refusing to drop the hammer on these people because they're coming through your neck every time.
There you go, man. Well, that's exactly why I brought the Turzai. I mean, people may have been listening to the show for a while. You might recognize that today's intro for the Turzai intro was one that we played last month, 2 months ago, last month. When that
2 months ago, month and a half ago.
Yeah, when Turzai made those remarks, and because let's just remember, this is what's going on. So, right here in PA, folks, right here in PA.
And you should be said, like, this was also sent out to, obviously, the Jewish members of the Democratic caucus. Dan Frankel was one of them who got them, and Dan Frankel's district had the Tree of Life. Tree of Life is in his district, and like this is the rhetoric. This is what they've become.
It is indeed. It is indeed. So we got our work cut out for us, folks.
And this is what we need to have unity with,
yeah.
Kevin.
Yeah, Sean, let's put aside our petty differences with the Nazis and realize that if I do not get cut, if you do not get cut, do we not both bleed? Because that's really what matters. People are Sean. The reason people are angry is because they just haven't been offered a seat at the table. It's just they haven't been welcomed into our fold. So if we just accept these Nazis as human beings that deserve equal respect, right, as everyone else, they'll just give up their bad ideas.
It's almost like that meme where you had the KKK on one side, the anti-racists on the other, and the liberal in the middle saying, "Can't we just get along?"
Yeah, exactly. It's like, come on. It's like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. So yeah. But speaking of getting along, there's I've been poking at this a little bit here. Well, first, before I get into this, I want to talk about the ABSCUF contract negotiations. So the latest update is. Time is running out, though, because the June 30th contract expires, yep. But they did come to an agreement outside of the contract, which will be apparently ratified if a new contract gets accepted, that the ABSCUF and the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education, the Board of Governors, and the governor's office, and all, they kind of, or the chancellor, they kind of got together, did a little kumbaya themselves. And they passed a phased retirement program, right? So in other words, that instead of deciding that if you're a faculty member, deciding that you're going to, do I retire or do not I retire, you can do this in a phased way. So in other words, you say, yes, I want to be part of this, and then you can go to a part-time schedule, right? Say 3 courses and then 2 courses, then 1 course or something like this over a period of years, right? As a phased retirement program. And during that period of time, you keep your benefits and that kind of thing, right? So that's the idea. Now, let me say right from the get-go, I do not think that as an abstract idea, right, is necessarily a bad thing. I think that's actually, there's a strong defense that you could make for that as a process. So for example, you say, okay, you don't want to just have the person decide yes or no, right? Because we've had that before. My second year, I think, at Kutztown, faculty, we had a horrible contract, and faculty who were kind of qualified for retirement or at kind of retirement age were given a choice. Either you retire now and you keep the benefits that you had, your medical benefits, or you take your chances in the crapshoot that is going to be going forward, because we got cuts on our benefits and everything like that during that contract. And then in my department alone, right, we lost about 40% of our faculty members, right? And again, it was an older department, things like this. So that was a big deal. So this would actually say, okay, look, we get to retirement age, you can actually kind of start to slow down. And so that actually can ensure a transition. So say, for example, senior faculty members tend to kind of run programs and things like this. They kind of have some institutional memory. So you could basically say those faculty could have, start to hand over the work to other people over a period of time. right? And they might still be valuable contributors to different kinds of programs, right? So there's all that going for it. We can argue about whether that's a good thing or not. I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. But if you did that over a period of time, what you could also do is you could build in a plan, right? So the money that was being saved by not employing that person at a full-time salary, right, would then be put into a pot, right, to save for the rehiring of the replacement faculty on the other end, right? That would be a kind of a good way to do that, right? So then you're planning for it and system, but that is not part of this agreement, right? So there is not that kind of like buyback in the system. But more importantly, what kind of like several of us, at least those of us who voted against this phased retirement plan, drew attention to the fact that in our contract, we have fought really, really hard to keep a cap on adjunct faculty members, right? Right now it's 25%. That alone is higher than we would like it, those of us who've been advocating for keeping a cap, right? So because we recognize that most college universities across the country completely exploit adjuncts, right? So they exploit adjuncts, they pay them like crap, they don't give them any benefits, and then it's upwards of 70% of the faculty member at college universities who are teaching at a part-time contingent basis, right? ABSCUF, our contract, right, has often been seen as a gold standard, in part because only 25% of our faculty now can do that, right? Could be part-time faculty or could be contingent faculty, right? Adjuncts. What this agreement does, the early retirement, it says, okay, I am a senior faculty member, and I'm going to retire, right? And I'm going to go from a full-time load to a part-time load, right? So from 4 classes a semester to 2 classes a semester, right? So technically, I am a part-time faculty member at that point, right? Now, in this agreement, that number, that part-time faculty, right, will not be counted against the cap, right? So in other words, that you have just basically allowed for an increase, a potential increase in the number of part-time faculty members, right, at the university, right? And it's explicitly excluded, right, from counting as part of the cap, right? So we're trying to draw attention to that here. And so that basically will affect about 975 individuals would be eligible, right, according to a systems spokesperson, right? This is kind of reported in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, right? So 975 individuals would be eligible. Will all those 975 individuals make use of this early phase retirement, therefore bouncing up the kind of adjunct faculty? Probably not, right? But you've allowed for that in principle, to find ways around the cap, right, to increase that. And both the union and the state system agree that the primary benefit of this is that it's going to save the state system money, right? It is going to save the state system money. That is the motivating factor. So it's going to save the system money. It's going to allow faculty members, to slowly retire, right? So there's some kind of benefit, some value benefit there, but that is not going to be kind of going back into making sure that you're having full-time faculty replacement. So it's kind of interesting. What was fascinating, if you have the Board of Governors Chairwoman Cynthia Shapiro, this is what she had to say about this. The voluntary phase retirement program ratified for the Board of Governors today is an example of system leadership and faculty working together, and is a result of our productive relationship with the faculty union. We thank their leadership and members for this important step forward. All right? Now, in principle, that's a good thing, right? That you can come to an agreement on this kind of stuff. But it scares the crap out of me when I hear language like that too as well. Something that was negotiated outside of the contract, something that is in the middle of contract negotiations. We don't know what is going to be happening going forward. The new chancellor, Greenstein, basically came out this year's budget hearings and said, yeah, this year we're still kind of getting our feet kind of on the ground. We're making sure, but next year is going to be a tough year. They've already warned us that the following year, be prepared for cuts. Be prepared for downsizing. Be prepared for program elimination. Didn't say it in exactly those words, but if you go back and you look at what he's talking about in those budget hearings, that's what he's talking about. Right? And he told the legislators, yeah, this year, look, I have to use last year's numbers when there was no accountability, his words, right? We're building in accountability, fiscal accountability, and we'll have those in place by probably this fall 2019. Then that's when we have to start worrying, right? So that's what's on the table. So I'm very, very skeptical in this particular kind of climate when you start talking about the state system leadership and faculty working together and joining hands in hands and singing Kumbaya around something like this. Now, maybe I'm jumping the gun and overstating the case, but the climate we're in right now is one that should be mass mobilization from below, not kind of behind the doors negotiations happening kind of like who knows what with the leadership there. Transparency first, organizing first, and we'll go from there. Anyways, 2 cents. Kind of cool thing, Martin Tower. Cool thing in some ways. Martin Tower, the headquarters of Bethlehem Steel, was imploded on the 19th.
A pillar of excess and greed.
Yes, it was.
I mean, like, people, it's actually like, yeah, I was reading about this yesterday. They actually made it like into a cross.
Yep.
So more people can get more window and corner offices.
That's correct. That is correct. And they've tried, and of course, Bethlehem Steel, the steelworks are all kind of defunct. And, but it's just like a marker. The building had so much, one was an icon kind of coming into Bethlehem, but for exactly the reasons that you just stated there too as well, it also kind of like said so much, and it's gone now. So,
but I heard that Trump is actually bringing steel jobs back to Bethlehem, so we don't have to worry about the tower going down.
No. Well, it's actually going to be like they're going to bring in lots of new shops there now, Sean. So it's
going to be gentrified.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's going to be totally gentrified. Well, they tried to convert to condos. They tried to, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere too, as well. It's like it's out, not in the middle of nowhere. It's out away from the city and other kind of stuff, so you can, be guarded from the masses and stuff like that. But yeah, it won't work, so they destroyed it. There you go.
And
mm-hmm.
Like the South Park joke. South Park, it's a South Park reference. When Stan goes to the bank for the first time to deposit a check, he gives it to the bank, and the bank goes, and it's gone.
And it's gone. There you go.
Yes.
Good. And last thing on our PA focus before we move into today's last call, I will be working. Tomorrow is primary day in Pennsylvania, right? So I know it is a off-year election, but it is an important one in many locales around the state. Right, Commonwealth. Tomorrow's a primary election here I'm in Percy in Penridge School District. There's a major school board election happening here, and it's been fascinating to see this movement grow. So there is a group of, if you talk to people in the town, as there basically was a coup on our school board last year, right? There's 2 women in particular who are like regularly retweet like white nationalist crap, right?
Oh, is this stuff like public online?
Yes.
Like, is it being used?
It's we'll get to that. We'll get to that at another point. And it has been, right? But I
take it the Republicans.
Okay, here's the thing. In the school board election, all the candidates are cross-listed parties, right? So every candidate who's running is listed on the Republican side and the Democratic side. All right, and so there's this group. So basically, you've got this one group that is currently on the school board, who not only were they doing that kind of stuff that I was talking about there, they were, literally bullied and berated this one school board member kind of last year until she couldn't take it anymore and she quit. Right, kind of forced her off the board. Not only did that, they have used students, right, to go out and kind of like send out tweets or attack tweets like against some of these other candidates. And then when there was the mass, if you remember, there was the Penridge 225 or whatever like that. So Penridge had the mass walkout, right, in protest about gun violence and things like this following the shootings in Florida, the Parkland shootings. And those students were given detention and all this kind of stuff. And one of the school board members who's on there now was actively, like publicly online on Twitter, just saying horrible things about these students, right? And so you're a board member, and you're kind of like going after students for that. I mean, you can agree or disagree with what they did, but if you're on a school board, and you're attacking students for their views, as opposed to celebrating the fact that they're actually learning the process of democracy, agree or disagree with what their position was. I mean, that's something. So anyways, there's a group of five candidates who are running with a group called One Penridge, right? And they're Kelly Peliquin, Peter Yarnell, Kyle Esposito, Lisa Wilson, and Alex Rajan. They are running together as a slate, and what their hope is to get enough people, and they've been on the ground organizing now for months, right? They're doing door knocking and everything like this. They've got I found out yesterday that they have 10 times the amount of single donations, like single unique contributors, than the other side. The other side got all of their money basically from some PAC and the Republican Party. That's it. They've done virtually no campaigning except for name recognition. But these other folks are doing kind of grassroots organizing and have the potential to really change the whole dynamic. So if enough people come out and they have enough people vote for them, right, regardless of party, if you vote for them as a Republican, you vote them as a Democrat, right, if you're going in there for the primary, they're going to show up on both of those things. Just vote for these folks. Vote for the One Penridge team. If they win outright, then you basically clean the slate for the fall's election, right? It means that you've actually used the primary process. You've gone through the primary process and actually achieved the goal of of changing the school board. Whatever the outcome is tomorrow, right? There's still going to be an election that's going to happen on the fall. But I will be working the polls tomorrow, pretty much all day, in support of these candidates. I have 2 kids in the Penridge School District. I live in here. I was. When I started seeing, when people started pointing me to what was happening on the school board, I started paying some attention to this. I couldn't believe it, right? My wife was just like, she's like, she could not believe the behavior. Because a lot of the stuff is streamed online, so you can actually watch like the behavior of these people on the school board now. So it is not a good thing for our school district. So I'll be out there tomorrow. It'll be a good thing. And I hope this is the genesis of a local organization that have mobilized for these candidates that will continue the mobilization into 2020. So look forward to that.
And it's one of the things it's amazing how like the politics, like the right wing politics is trickling into the school boards.
Yes.
Like I was talking to even like with some of the conservative lobbyists up here who are like actually like involved with their government. They're just like, people are asking questions for the school board, like, what do you think about the wall? And these like conservative lobbyists are like, that has nothing to do with how this school district functions. And they're like, well, what do you think about the wall? And it's just like, it's even out here in central Pennsylvania. Abington, you have a white nationalist running for school board on the Republican side. And it's like you're seeing the complete collapse of the Republican Party out in the Southeast, too, if this is the candidates that they're fielding. But yeah, that's just nuts.
Yeah, it is. We've seen actually that there's a group here. It's called the Penridge Taxpayer Group, right? Who are those people? They are the far right people that have organized kind of locally and have been pushing and been supporting some of the stuff on the school board and things like this. So you see this happening. Yeah.
And then we have a big school board race out here in Harrisburg. It's getting a lot more attention than like the open city council seats. We don't have any districts out here in Harrisburg, so it's all at large, especially for city council and school board. We have an ineffective school board that told state auditor general's office to go pound sand when they wanted to do an audit on the city's finances, the district's finances. This has led to the question of receivership for the city. But, tomorrow it's actually pretty weird. The unions, AFSCME, the local teachers, the PSEA chapter out here, and the developers, like the people, who are gentrifying the city and support charter schools, are all picking are all endorsing the 4 incumbent challengers. And there are actually like people who are good. I think there's only like one charter school supporter on this list, like on this slate that's running, but most of them are actually pretty decent. And the charter school person I talked to said he's not for streamlining any charter school that applies in the city, and he wants to actually try to shut down a couple of the charter schools that are just scamming money from people and from the community. But we have a big, it's just a lot of holdovers from the Reed and Thompson administrations and people who've used to been getting away with machine politics in the city for a while. And it looks like there's a big concerted effort to change that. So in Harrisburg tomorrow, there's a big school board race, and hopefully these 4 candidates get on, because it's just complete and total dysfunction. You have an administration that is not defending the teachers. You have an overbloated administration. You have, there was a report earlier this week that a student or a teacher was kicked by a student, and basically the administrator was like, well, maybe the teacher shouldn't have done what they did to get kicked. This is the type of people that are getting hired by the school board to work in the district.
Yep.
And so this shit just has to change, and hopefully tomorrow is the reckoning for that, because this is one of the things that's holding the city back.
Yep. There we have it. Get out there and vote tomorrow, folks. I know
that local elections are important.
Yeah, super, super important. As has been said to me by more than one person over the past couple of weeks, looking at the school board election, it's the elections that are going to have most direct control and impact on your everyday life are these local elections. And unfortunately, usually we know the least about them, which is something. So get to the polls tomorrow. It's a primary day. Ask people in your district, ask people in your kind of in your area, what are the issues that are there? Find people that are plugged in, ask those questions, and get out there and vote for the progressive candidates that can kind of move us forward, or at least that are looking to kind of change things for the better. Anyways, anything else going on, PA?
Not really.
Yeah.
Tomorrow in the Capitol, there is a rally being held by a bunch of women group. I think Women's Law Project. To speak out against the abortion bans that have been happening.
There we have it. Get out there, folks. All right. Well, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We're going to be back right after this with today's Let's Talk. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. For the past 7 years, Raging Chicken Press has brought pull no punches, progressive reporting and commentary to the interwebs. Our long-form investigative pieces, stories that no access journalist wants to touch, or rollicking weekly podcasts strive to advance progressive movements and perspectives rooted in the struggles happening across the country or down the street. We've broken national stories and caused our share of discomfort in the halls of power. If we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. And you can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. Best way you can do that is to become a member of Raging Chicken today by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Thank you for your energy, your encouragement, and your support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. Let's go. Yes, today we talk about beer, we talk about space news, we talk about all sorts of whatever we feel like talking about. Just that's kind of fun. Usually, well, we never get away from politics. I was going to say not political. Well, we always get there anyways. But today, quick one on space news. It's interesting. There's a new study out. Basically looking ahead. I was so psyched to see this. It's It's an article in Live Science, right? And it's titled, says, "Space mining could ruin our solar system if we don't establish protected places now," researchers warn. And it's a study that was published in the journal Acta Astronautica, I guess. And it makes a case for designating 85% of our solar system as protected wilderness, akin to the Earth's national parks. Right, which is really fascinating. And what they basically look at is say, well, what happened during the Industrial Revolution? Right, it's like we didn't do it. We just like let it all go, let the market rule, right? Let industry rule, let the corporations rule, and it destroyed things, right? People's lives, like places that we will never get back again, like strip mining, just total extractivism gone crazy. And as I've been saying, like, for a long time, that's exactly what's all getting kind of like teed up for the next kind of move in space travel. And this becomes even more important as we're talking about 2024 is the new goal to put people back on the moon. China is sending out landers, and they want to establish a permanent base like on the moon by the early 2020s, right, or mid 2020s. So all this is in motion, and there's articles, if you pay attention to space stuff, there's articles that have been kind of coming out all this past week because there's been a series of conferences and stuff about what's next in space industry and so on, about saying that move to the moon is critical for getting to the outer planets, in particular asteroid mining and getting to Mars, right? And so this is all gearing up. Jeff Bezos, they just launched a video last week, I believe, where they have Blue Origin, that's his space company, designing a new moon lander that has all sorts of kind of robotic capabilities to kind of set up operations there on the moon. That's getting rolled out. NASA is continuing to look to private industry as a way of kind of setting up kind of the industry on the moon. And what's getting championed, and I talked about this the last time we had a official podcast, was that the moon becomes critical because they found that there's water there and they could manufacture rocket fuel, and they're going to start mining materials on the moon. So this is actually in the near future, not the distant kind of sci-fi future. So the fact that you've got a group coming out and doing this study that's kind of looking at planning long term, right, using the lessons from the past, like the Industrial Revolution, for example, and to say, how do we not repeat those mistakes? And the fact that you're actually calling for a policy of kind of like 85% kind of wilderness areas in the solar system is pretty amazing. So check that out if you're interested in that kind of stuff. I know I am. The report's interesting. I'm just getting my head around it. Didn't even know this journal existed, frankly, until now. But now I do. So now I'm going to geek out on that for a while. That was kind of a pretty cool stuff. In beer news this week, Dogfish Head Brewery. Dogfish Head Brewery is now merging with Sam Adams.
I have not had Dogfish Head in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they just became like bland, regular, like generic craft beer you can get in the stores and all, like nothing like world shaking. But I mean, it is what it is. I don't know if this is going to be the trend in the future, but maybe the guy from Sam Adams is like wants to get out. But also, you look at it, like Sam Adams was never considered craft beer until recently by the metrics.
Right.
The Craft Brewers Alliance, like the industry trade group, recently within the past 3 or 4 years, upped their they changed their definition of what craft beer is to allow organizations like Sam Adams and Yuengling into it, which brings in a whole lot more resources to them, a whole lot more money, and that brings in a lot more lobbying power and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so Sam Adams is now considered craft. I don't think so. Sam Adams never went after the large brewers. They always competed against the imports when they first started. That was their market plan. Is what it is, I guess. I mean, you look at it, Sam Adams has contract. Also, Sam Adams does not have a physical location in Boston, Massachusetts. They have a small brewery there, but their whole entire business model is based on a network of contract breweries across the country. We have one in Allentown, like that's Sam Adams Brewery. You can't tour it. It's not. All that is just a factory for beer, pretty much. and it's pretty much what they rely on. So, it is what it is. YOLO.
Yeah, exactly.
Sam got $150 million in shares from Sam Adams. So
more money.
If you're Sam from Dogfish Head and that happens, someone drops $160 million in your fucking pocket, what do? Say no?
Maybe. But Dogfish Head is just I think it's noteworthy in part because they were really a pioneer in some of this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was.
I felt like they just became too gimmicky and trendy, and trying to hit that hipster stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. So there it is. But I'm glad. I'm hoping that it is not the 100% trend. That there's other trends that are going to push back against this. I've really dug. Well, maybe here's my little story. When I first moved to Washington, D.C., right, there was a beer called Foggy Bottom, right? And Foggy Bottom is the area right around George Washington University. It's kind of bumps up against where the Watergate is, the Watergate, up against the river and things like this. And when I first moved there, I was looking for a DC beer, right? Kind of looking for something that was coming from the area. And I saw that. I was so excited, right? And I was like, oh, this is awesome, right? Not only do I teach there, down there as an adjunct, but, it's right from here. And I pick it up and I bought a case of it because you had to buy a case at the time, whatever. I bought a case of it and I eventually kind of look at the bottle and I'm reading the label closely. And I find out that it was actually brewed right, in Utica, New York, my hometown. Right? It was not brewed in D.C., right? It was one of these kind of contract breweries, right? They had a recipe for it, whatever, and it was brewed in Utica Club Brewery, right? FX Max Brewery in Utica, New York. And that, for whatever reason, got me looking into some of the kind of the history of beer in the area. And there used to be all these breweries in D.C., right, in this area. And the Foggy Bottom was an area that you had those breweries used to be located. And I always remembered my experience, and why I was kind of excited about it at first was my experience when I was in Europe and I spent some time in Germany, where you go to a particular area and they have their brewery, right, and you can get that beer when you're in that area. Right? They don't do these kind of mass distributions and things like that all over. I mean, obviously there's some beers that are like that, but a lot of them is just like, it was built into the culture that the brewery is kind of connected to the town as part of the civic life. And the rise of craft brewery, right? Forget all the hipster crap, right? But I mean, talking about like local industries, and this is why I like, I always promote Free Will's beer. In part because what's interesting to me about it is not the kind of mass distribution they do, because they do some of that, quote unquote mass. I mean, it's still kind of a relatively small scale. But the interesting thing is that, the town, right? The interesting thing is that the stuff that they have on tap that they never can, that they're always trying new things and brewing things out. It's not about kind of like repetition and perfection. It's about trying new stuff. And now they have food trucks that come out there, and it becomes a place of meeting of the community. And that for me is kind of a whole different kind of model. Now, if you couple that model with also what we saw kind of happening on the West Coast, where you start moving to some more employee ownership, right? Kind of a cooperative, like collective ownership of these different breweries in these areas that become even more part of the community. I would love to see things go in that direction. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from there. So, Sean, what other cool stuff? What everything's been going on since we last talked?
So, my couch is always perpetually just messy behind me in the background. Mm-hmm. It acts as my second closet. I was taking stock of which shirts I'm starting to fit back into over the past week. So that's always nice. I pretty much dropped 20 pounds in the past couple months.
Way to go, man.
From just going out, walking around with my lens. I stopped drinking beer back in March for about a few weeks to see if that will help. And so, I fell off that wagon. Well, right around the time I got my lens, And just having that, I mean, it's an extra 4 pounds like in your bag all the time. You know, my bag weighs about 10 or 15 pounds depending on what gear I have in it. And it, you know, walking and constantly having that, being in the Capitol, now it's the busy season since, like, you know, they're in every single week from like mid-March through the end of the year, through the budget. I dropped like 20 pounds by just walking around and, you know, finally getting back into my old shirts. It was sort of like a goal I had the past few years. It's amazing, like, when you don't actively try to lose weight and you lose weight, and it's just like it's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
Like, I stepped on the scale the other day. I was like, holy shit. Like, because like what ended up happening was I could start feeling it in my chest. Like, the shirts were just like almost like feeling like nightgowns. And then, yeah, so that was good.
That's very cool, especially since you sit there and say, "Hello, little Lindsay. Would you like to go for a walk with me today? Maybe a little stroll down by the river to go look at some birds."
Well, I mean, like, so like there's Wildwood Park, which is near us, which is really nice. I ended up getting a picture of an osprey grabbing a fish out of the water.
Nice.
Like actually flying in midair. It's really shitty just because of like my camera doesn't have that much resolution to it towards other stuff. Mm-hmm. So when you crop it in, you lose value of the picture. Mm-hmm. But it actually nailed the focus from like a couple hundred feet away.
Were you sitting there when you got that picture? Like, you looked around, you like, did you see that? Did you see that? I got it. Did you see that?
I don't know what happened was, like, I was talking to this guy. I was like, hey, the osprey, there's an osprey nest going up. Have you seen it? He's like, no, not yet. So like he left. And there's a group of kids with their parents coming down, and I was walking back to my car 5 minutes after that guy left, and the kids were walking down. I literally, like, am in the process of tossing my bag into the car, and I hear, like, the kids just start screaming, like, oh my God, did you see that? And then you just see this osprey, like, circling with a carp in its talons.
Awesome.
But then and a couple days ago, also really awesome, I was sitting on Roxbury's deck, the deck of wisdom.
The deck of wisdom or something.
The black hole.
It keeps pulling me back in.
And this is why, like, I always have my camera with me at all times, even though if I'm not doing anything. Literally, like, had a hawk fly right by us at, like, almost at, like, eye level where we were at. And 2 other blackbirds were chasing it. And we're just, holy shit, that thing has a bird in its talons. And so, like, I watched it land in, like, one of the lowest, like, trunks of this tree on the Capitol grounds. So I just got my camera out with my lens already on there, ran up, and I'm, like, 10, 15 feet away from this hawk just ripping into this, like, blackbird.
Oh, man.
And this thing is just staring at us.
Man.
And you just see, like, feathers flying. Like, I got one picture of, like, its head ripped off.
Oh, my God.
I mean, I'm not putting that up online, but... Like,
hey, look at this massacre.
No, I mean, like, it's predation. And
no,
actually,
totally. I mean, yeah.
And it's actually pretty funny. Someone's like, this is totally meme-worthy. Like, you can make memes out of this thing. Like, Democrats. Like, so... Or I'm thinking about making up some ones like working people with the hawk. Yeah. And then, like, union-busting billionaires on the bottom.
There you go. Nice.
Got scored out.
Nice.
So there was that, and there's also there's been a lot of good, like, book stuff coming up at the local bookstore lately.
And so, Midtown?
Yes, Midtown Scholar. So last week, George Lakey, I think that's his name.
Yep.
Yes. George Lakey was up here talking about his latest book. Now, tomorrow, Igor Volsky is talking about his Guns Down book. Mm-hmm. And then in a few more weeks, the person who wrote Red State Revolt is coming to talk about the teacher strikes.
Awesome. So he's actually coming up to Lehigh Valley, too, as well, as part of a DSA reading group. And yours truly is going to be interviewing him for the podcast. So
nice.
Yeah.
While you're there, or like on site, or
we haven't worked out the details yet, but
okay, yeah. So like so like the DSA chapter out here is putting this together, and so it's some like really good, like, interesting stuff, like back to back, because sometimes you may not have, like, these type of topics come up right in succession like that.
Yeah. Yeah, my goal for this for the summer, and then hopefully to build a sustainable thing. Now that I've got my freaking sleep apnea kind of under control, and I actually can think again, to kind of set up do some of these kind of more regular interviews once again. Because I worked with a guy from Midtown kind of for a bit to do a couple interviews there, and that worked out really well. But I just could not keep track of things, and get my shit together. I want to keep that going. So he's another person I want to get back in touch with and see if we can bring that up to bring in some more of the kind of interviews to the podcast, because we've gotten great feedback on those, and they have a kind of staying power. And I think there's kind of like, tools and kind of food for the movement, really. I mean, to kind of come back to. So that's one of the things we'll be kind of doing moving forward. So it's cool. So I had, as Sean was saying before, it's like, I was on vacation, right? Actually, my wife and I, right after I turned in grades, we went away for 3 days. My folks came down, got to watch my kids. So we went away for 3 days. 3 days by ourselves, like the first time pretty much ever, just to go someplace. And we went down the shore, and which is actually a great time to go because you can get really cheap stuff because, it's still off season before Memorial Day. But the coolest thing is, so we just did a lot of walking. There's down a kind of north of Cape May. There's a bird sanctuary there, right? You can do all sorts of walking through there. So we just kind of walked through all the six sanctuaries. We went and found some other ones out in Higbee Beach area. There's another kind of preserve out there. It's run by the Nature Conservancy. And so we just kind of did a lot of walking on the beach. It was great. Just a total detox. The weather turned out to be good. It was supposed to be kind of crappy weather. That was in the forecast, turned out to be nice. But the craziest thing is that if you're one of the places that we walked near the bird sanctuary, there's this one beach that's not part of the sanctuary, but there's one beach that we just kind of walk. It's nice because there's not a lot of people there. You walk for a while, and you get to basically this one part where it's the channel of the kind of boats coming in back and forth from Cape May, and you can walk out to there. So it's it's a nice long walk, and there had been a storm the 2 days or day before that we got there. Basically, like 2 straight days actually. There had been storms, and the weather was really bad and all that kind of stuff. But when we got there, it was nice. So we're walking along this beach, and literally, my every time we go, my wife's goal is to get like a conch shell. Like, ever since she was a kid, she's always wanted to look for a conch shell. Came up on this beach, and there were literally like hundreds of them. It was unbelievable, right? So we got a whole bunch brought back to the kids and things like this, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing to see all these shells, and some snail shells that were like the size of my fist, right? Just amazing stuff. The other thing that we saw on the beach, however, which was not as pleasant, which was disheartening, but was a dead whale. That had also, it was a baby whale, right? So, and it was not a beached whale. Apparently, according to some of the people, who work for the different parks there, it was not a beached whale. So a whale that had died, they don't know why, out at sea, and it kind of washed up. And so that was something pretty amazing. I mean, just to see, and disheartening and concerning, because we'd also been reading about there had been a series of beached whales and dead whales washing up, gray whales and some other kind on the East Coast fairly recently. There had one just outside Boston, Cape Cod, I guess, had washed up recently too as well. So you always see something like that, and you're worried, like, is this just life? This is just like, or is it something deeper? And that's always a concern, especially when you see the I mean, even the whale, they said it was probably up on the beach just like a day when we saw it, right? So it had not yet seriously decomposed and things like this. So you're seeing this just magnificent creature and hoping, the old gods, the new, right? That this is not the sign of what we're going to start seeing in
But one of the things, so I found, have you heard of City Island in Harrisburg?
Yeah. That's where the ballpark is, right?
Yeah. So there's that bridge that like collapsed with an ice storm. So I actually start walking on the back end of City Island, like on a mulch, like a more like an access trail, and just like a trail. It's like naturally up on top of this ridge line. It's like this ridge line's like 5 feet wide, and it has like goes right into the river right there, or there's like this gulch, and so the gulch is like. So I was back there playing around back there the past couple of days. It looks like there's like a homeless camp back there sometimes, but it's so muddy where it's just not practical to stay.
Right.
So I actually went back into there's a way of like on the back end underneath the collapsed bridge to get there, and like start looking down on the ground and you see like all these heron tracks everywhere. So it's just the type of thing where it's like there's a lot of activity there. I'm there during the middle of the day, but I want to try to get there at like daybreak.
Yeah.
Like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to see what's all back there. Because a lot of like different like cardinals and grackles and stuff like that. It's actually pretty interesting to see how diverse this area is with these animals. And it's also another thing is like how serious people get about birding too. I mean,
oh my
like,
God, tell me about it.
Like I'm out here I'm taking pictures of birds, one, because I want to see like how fast the lens is, right? The autofocus, and getting used to like getting my like lens from my up to my face and focus real quickly.
Right.
And I mean, like it's just something easy to shoot. They're fun, and it's also amazing seeing like how like diverse like people love. Like I mean, like all the different warblers coming through. You have like the yellow warblers, all these different like stuff that's just moving through the area right now. And just because of like being in the Appalachian and having the Susquehanna River right there, I mean, there's these hundreds of islands. But I finally saw like a night heron the other day on like a little mud flap, which was cool on City Island. But I still have yet to come across like a great blue up close with my new lens.
Oh man, I was like, there's a little stream that runs to the Perkiomen Creek. One of the branches of the Perkiomen Creek runs right near where I live, and there's a long walking path. And there's one great blue heron that's kind of always down in there. There's a pair of them. And we were up one day. I couldn't get around a corner enough to just get a shot. I mean, all I had was with my cell phone. But it was like probably, I don't know, 15 feet. Right? It got within 15 feet. And it was just magnificent just watching it. So.
I mean, they're huge too.
Yeah, they really are. And when they take off, right, when they finally they recognize you're there, you're just spooked, they take off, it's like they're practically silent, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's incredible. It really is. It really is.
Yeah, we have a lot of egrets in the area and stuff like that, like hundreds of them. All these yellow crowned night herons. Yeah. And I saw a couple great blues nesting, but I couldn't get a really good picture of them.
Yeah, I do have to say, the kind of intense birders, they kind of freak me out. Those people are like, you know what it was like? Is like, these are people. Now this, I don't know anything about the culture except what I see, right? And what I see is kind of like people who don't like guns, but really want to go on safari. And they want to feel like they're like safari people. Right? And the men it's really important for the men to have really big lenses.
Oh my God, yes. like up here in Wildwood Park, I mean, like these are lenses that are like $10,000-$15,000 lenses. These aren't like, I paid like $1,200 for my lens used. The lenses that these people have are just stuff it's just stuff that like I would never even consider buying.
Yeah.
Because I would have no practical use for, besides like walking around with this like 10-pound fucking weight on my shoulder. And like, I know, I mean, people are serious. Like there's one guy I came across like with a hand truck, almost like a wheelbarrow, with his tripod, a couple lenses, his camera and everything. Like, no, people sink some serious money into this. I mean, like these people are the actual photographers. Like, not like they do photography on the side, and I guess it's just a hobby for them at this point. But like, I mean, I'm talking about like these people have like a Sony A7R3.
Yeah, dude, there was this guy,
like a $5,000 body, and then like a $3,000 lens on top of it. And then there's people like walking around like $30,000-$40,000 worth of gear. Like glass.
Well, this is there was this guy. Okay, look, I look at like the birders that we saw. We're like looking at like it was like to a T, right? It's like this is like toxic masculinity barely contained. right? I mean, it's like on the edge of full blown, we're going to turn into kind of survivalist in a moment.
Contest, like who has the bigger
right. And every time that they're with a woman, there's always clear patriarchy going on there. Right? I mean, almost to the individual. And again, I'm not saying this about every birder. I'm not saying that if you're a birder that you're one. I'm just saying this is what we saw while we were there. So there's this one outlook, right, that we walk in this big marshy area and stuff, and you can kind of walk out, and there's a kind of a viewing platform that's probably up about 25 stairs, and then you're kind of up there kind of looking over this kind of open water area in the marsh, right? And so my wife and I, we're walking there, we're kind of look up there and watching the birds, just kind of looking at stuff. And there's this guy and this man and woman kind of walking down this path towards this, right? And he's like talking as loud as can be, right, about, the importance of like the philosophical aspects of art, right? And all this kind of stuff, right? Clearly full of himself. He is decked out like he is on freaking safari, right? He looks like he's on the edge of the kind of rugged man thing, right? And he's got these camera lenses that are just freaking unbelievable, right? And so he comes walking, and he doesn't see us up there, even though we're clearly visible, right? He comes walking up the stairs, gets almost to the top, tells the woman to shut up. He didn't say shut up. He said like, we
quiet their toots.
We shouldn't talk about that in front of us, right? About their art philosophy conversation, as if this is like we're freaking there to break the code on this guy's like life, whatever. Right? So he comes out. He's got these huge lenses. He literally walks up to the edge of the platform, pulls out this mammoth lens and stuff like that, points it, barely looks, and just goes click, 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 click. Walks the other side, goes click, 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 and then they leave. Right? I'm like, and I said to Chris, I said to my wife, I said, if that was Sean, right? Sean would have been thinking about framing the shot, like what would be the good picture. That this guy just comes up here with like 2 Mercedes worth of like camera equipment, and just barely even pays attention to the picture. I mean, it was like unbelievable. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been pretty cool. Like, yeah.
So,
I mean, like we have, like now there's like Orioles coming in and they're making their nests. There's warblers and stuff like that. So it's just like it's yeah.
So okay, what I was trying to say, Sean, I don't think you got my point. My point was like, Sean, this could be you, so be careful. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So anything else for good of the order?
No, that's it.
Last thing I got to say is Game of Thrones is now done, folks. It is over. I am not going to give you any spoilers, and I love the way it ended. But I actually stayed up, and everyone else went to bed. I watched it last night on the Night Wiz because I didn't want it to get spoiled for me, and it's over. There's lots of critiques that are out there. Have at them. Not even going to get involved with that.
Who got the Iron Throne?
I'm not saying. I'm not spoiling it for people. There's going to be people out there like me who have not yet seen the final thing. They're waiting for to have time to be able to do that. I'm not going to ruin it for them. So it's that easy to figure it out. If you want to find out who it is, just go Game of Thrones finale and you'll find out. So anyways, that pretty much does it for us today, folks. We are back, and thanks to all for kind of the notes. Thanks again to Nancy, our latest member, coming at the $10 a month level. Want to remind everybody, you become a member of Raging Chicken going to patreon.com/rcpress. Become a member for as little as $5 a month. And thank you all for listening, and let's keep up the fight as we move into what promises to be a hot summer politically. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press with Sean Kitchen. We'll be back with you next week, or later this week. See ya!
None of us is perfect. First of all, what's perfect? What is perfect? What is allowable as a human being? Oh, please tell us, far left, since you seem to have a judgment on this. Since you seem to hold any of us who regard the unborn child with dignity and protection as sort of, like we're just beneath them, right? Like, what do you know? Move into the 21st century. Isn't that what they're telling us? To go with their sense of eugenics, like the Nazi regime, right? Is that really where it is? Well, here's the thing. Every single human being is beautiful.